On the far side of a quiet galaxy, there was a planet covered with shining rivers and tall blue forests. It was not a place of war or machines, but a place of life. Strange flowers opened when moons rose, and crystal rocks glowed under starlight. Among these wonders lived a gentle alien mother. She was tall, her skin soft like silver, and her eyes deep like dark water. But she was not smiling, not singing. She was broken inside, her nest was empty. The soft shells that once held her children were gone. Her eggs, her future, had been stolen. Every morning she went to the nest, touched the empty place, and wept. Her tears made the ground shine, but no one came to help her. She had carried those eggs for many long cycles. She had dreamed of the day when small voices would fill the air, the day when tiny hands would hold her, but now silence ruled her home, and silence was heavier than any stone. The forest knew her sorrow. The trees bent low as if listening. The rivers slowed as if holding breath. But the universe gave no answer. Only cold wind touched her face. She walked far and wide, calling for help. Other creatures of her world turned away. They were afraid of the raiders. Everyone had seen shadows in the sky, black ships with sharp wings. Everyone had heard the sound of engines that burned the air. It was those raiders who stole her eggs. Hunters of life, traders of souls. They took what was precious and sold it in dark markets. And no one dared to fight them. Still the mother searched. Every night she lifted her head to the stars. She begged the sky for someone to hear her pain. Her voice was soft yet full of fire. She was a mother, and a mother never stops hoping. One night, under the light of 2 moons, she sat by the nest and cried. The wind carried her voice beyond the trees. It rose into the open sky far away. A human traveler was entering the planet's orbit. He did not know her name, he did not know her sorrow, but soon their paths would meet, back on the ground. The mother held a broken piece of shell in her hands. She whispered to it, as if her children could still hear, I will not stop. I will not give up. Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned bright. Fear was strong, but love was stronger. The night grew darker. Strange shadows moved at the edge of the forest. The mother froze, her heart beat fast. Was it the raiders returning? Was it danger, or was it hope? The silence stretched long. The story of her grief was only beginning. She did not know yet, but in the coming days, her sorrow would meet a strange light, the light of a human heart. And that light would change everything. The planet slept under 2 silver moons. The forests whispered, the rivers shimmered, but the alien mother still wept beside her empty nest. Far above, in the silent sky, a different kind of sound grew louder. It was not the growl of raider engines. It was not the thunder of war. It was the steady hum of a human ship. The man inside was alone. He was not a soldier, not a pirate, not a king. He was only an explorer. His name was hidden in the stars, but his heart was clear. He came searching not for treasure, not for power, but for knowledge and truth. His ship broke through the clouds, glowing fire against the dark night. The ground shook as he landed. Animals ran from the trees, birds screamed in the sky. The alien mother looked up, fear flashing in her eyes. She had heard stories of humans. Stories of fire, stories of war. Some said humans were cruel. Others said they were clever but selfish. She did not know which story was true. The human stepped down from his ship. His boots pressed into the soft blue soil. He looked around with wonder. Strange air filled his lungs. Strange stars shone above him. He felt small yet alive. He carried no weapon in his hand. Only a scanner and a light. He wanted to map the land, to record new life. But soon he would find something greater than maps. As he walked through the tall trees, he heard a sound, not the cry of an animal, not the hiss of wind. It was the sound of sorrow. Soft, broken, endless, he followed it, step by step, and there, under the silver glow, he saw her. The alien mother sat beside her nest, her shoulders bent, her eyes filled with tears that glowed like crystal. She did not see him at first, but he saw her and his heart grew heavy. He could not understand her language. But grief has no language, pain has no barrier. He knew at once that she had lost something precious. He stepped closer, careful, slow. The forest held its breath. The mother looked up. Her eyes widened when she saw him. Fear and hope battled inside her heart. Was he another thief? Was he here to hurt her? The human raised his hands, showing they were empty. His voice was calm. I will not harm you, he said softly. She did not understand the words, but she felt the tone. It was gentle, not sharp, warm, not cold. The two stood in silence, staring at one another. Two beings from two worlds, one broken by sorrow, one moved by compassion. Something passed between them. Not speech, not thought, but understanding. The human looked at the nest. It was empty, broken. He saw the pieces of shell, he saw her tears, and in his heart a fire rose. Someone had stolen what belonged to her. Someone had torn life from her hands. He did not know why, but he knew it was wrong. He knelt beside the nest, touched the earth, then he looked at her. He placed his hand over his heart. The mother watched carefully for the first time. Her fear softened. She saw no weapon, no cruelty, only kindness. The night grew colder. The human stayed with her until the moons faded. He could not leave, not after seeing her pain. He felt pulled by something stronger than duty, something older than language. It was the bond between protector and the one who needed protection. When morning came, the human rose and scanned the ground. His device showed strange tracks. Heavy and deep, he followed them with his eyes. They led far away into the forest shadows. He turned to the mother, pointed at the tracks. Then at the nest she understood. Her breath caught, her eyes widened. Yes, those were the thieves, yes. Those were the ones who had taken her eggs. A new fire lit inside her, and a new resolve burned inside him. The human had no reason to stay, no command to follow, no reward to gain. But something inside whispered, "This is your path. This is your fight." And so the explorer became more than a traveler. He became a guardian, not of his own kind, but of life itself. The forest trembled with distant sounds. The raiders were out there, and the chase was about to begin. The alien mother watched as the human prepared to follow the trail. For the first time since her eggs were stolen, her tears slowed, her sorrow eased, because now she was not alone. The human rose with the first light of the twin suns. Mist drifted through the forest, curling around tall blue trunks. The air was quiet, too quiet, as if the world itself waited for his next step. Beside him, the alien mother stood, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dawn. Her eyes followed the tracks carved deep into the earth. Heavy footprints, sharp-edged, pressed into the soil, the mark of raiders. The human knelt and touched the ground. The earth was torn, roots broken. Something large had marched through here, not beasts but machines. The trail carried the smell of burnt air and oil. It was clear these were not gentle visitors. They were hunters. The mother shivered. Her hands clutched her chest. She remembered the sound of their ships, the roar that had shattered the sky, the way shadows had fallen over her nest. And then, the silence of loss, the human looked at her. He did not need words to understand. He nodded once, firm. His eyes promised something he would follow. He would not let the trail grow cold. They moved together, deeper into the forest. The trees grew thicker, the shadows longer. Strange insects clicked in the leaves. Every sound felt like a warning. The human scanner beeped softly. Energy traces glowed faint on the screen. Yes, the raiders had passed here. And not long ago, as they walked, the ground began to change. The soil grew darker, the plants twisted. The air smelled of smoke. Here the raiders had cut and burned. Here life had been torn apart. The mother's steps grew slower. Her grief was heavy. But her hope pulled her forward. The human stayed close, steady as a shadow. Then he saw it, a broken shard of glass. Not natural, not born of this world. It shone faint red in the light. He picked it up, studied it, a piece of raider tech. Evidence they were close. He held it out to her. The mother's eyes widened. She touched the shard with trembling fingers. She knew this metal. It was the same glow that had trapped her eggs. The same cages, the same thieves. Her breath quickened for the first time. Fear and hope mixed inside her. The forest grew darker the farther they went. The suns were hidden by tall cliffs, the shadows were thick as smoke. It felt as if the world was closing in. Every step echoed, every leaf rustled too loud. The human tightened his grip on the scanner. He felt eyes watching, unseen but near. Suddenly, the device blinked fast, a cluster of energy ahead. Not natural, not safe. He raised his hand, signaling silence. The mother froze, her breath caught, the forest stilled, then faint voices. Metallic and harsh, the sound of machines moving. The raiders were close. The human crouched low. Through the vines he saw shapes. Tall figures with armored skin. Their helmets glowed faintly. Their weapons hung at their sides, and near them strange cages pulsed with light. The eggs, the mother's children, still alive, still trapped. Her hand shook, her heart pounded. She wanted to run forward, she wanted to cry out. But the human held her back. One mistake now meant death. One sound would give them away. They had to wait, they had to plan. The raiders laughed in their strange tongue. They spoke of markets, of prices. Life to them was nothing more than profit. The human's jaw tightened. Anger burned inside him. But anger alone could not win. He studied them, counted them. Every movement, every step, he memorized the pattern. This was not the time to strike. It was the time to learn. As the raiders moved away, carrying the cages deeper into the shadows, the human let out a slow breath. The mother leaned against a tree, her tears returning, but this time, there was fire behind them, the fire of hope. For she had seen with her own eyes her children still lived. The human touched her arm gently. He pointed to the trail where the raiders disappeared. His eyes told her the truth. He would follow them. He would not stop. Not until the eggs were safe. Above them, the suns broke through the mist again. The forest lit up, but to both of them the light was not enough. For in the shadows ahead danger waited, and their true journey was only beginning. The human and the alien mother followed the trail for hours. The forest thinned and the ground grew black with ash. Strange scars marked the land, wide burns where nothing lived. The smell of smoke and metal filled the air. They were close, too close. The mother's heart pounded in her chest. Every step brought her nearer to her children, but every step also brought danger. She wanted to run forward, but fear held her back. The human walked ahead, careful, steady. His eyes scanned the shadows. His ears caught every sound. Finally, they reached a ridge. Beyond it, the land opened into a valley, and there it was. The raiders' camp. It was built from broken ships and black steel. Spikes rose like teeth around the edges. Fires burned in pits, sending smoke into the sky. Strange banners flapped in the hot wind. The sound of laughter and metal clashing echoed through the valley. The raiders were celebrating. The human crouched low, pulling the mother beside him. From the ridge they could see everything. Armored figures moved between the tents, their helmets glowing faint red, weapons strapped to their backs. And in the center of the camp, cages glowing with a pale blue light. Inside them, small shapes shifted. The eggs. The mother gasped. Her hands covered her mouth, tears filled her eyes. Her children were alive, but trapped. The human touched her arm, his face hard, his eyes sharp. He studied the camp with care. He counted the guards, he watched the patrols. He measured the distance from the ridge to the cages. His mind built a map. He was outnumbered. He had no army, no weapons strong enough, but he had one thing the raiders lacked. He had will. The raiders gathered around the fire. They lifted strange drinks, their voices rose like thunder. One leader stepped forward, his armor heavier, his helmet darker. He carried a staff glowing with red sparks. The others cheered for him. This was their commander. The one who led the theft. The one who had stolen life from the nest. The human felt anger rise inside him. He had seen cruelty before, but this was different. These were children unborn and helpless. Soldiers could fight back. Adults could resist, but these eggs had no defense. Only a mother's love, and now his protection. The mother leaned against him. Her body trembled. She whispered soft words in her own tongue. He did not understand, but he knew what she was saying. She was begging him to save them, begging him to bring her children home. The human nodded, not because it was easy, not because he was sure, but because he could not turn away. He would not. As night fell, the camp grew louder. The raiders feasted and roared. Flames lit the valley in harsh red. The cages glowed brighter. The eggs inside pulsed softly. Alive, waiting. The human waited too. Hidden in the shadows of the ridge, his breath slow, his heart steady. He studied every guard, every gap, every moment when the firelight blinded their eyes. He was patient. Patience was his weapon. The mother sat beside him, her hands pressed together. Her eyes never left the cages. Every time the wind shifted, she thought she heard faint sounds. Tiny heartbeats. She whispered their names. Names she had chosen long before. Names the raiders would never know. Hours passed. The raiders began to stumble. Their feast turned into drunken songs. Their weapons clattered to the ground. Their laughter shook the night. This was the moment the human had been waiting for. He turned to the mother. He placed a finger to his lips. She nodded. Though her fear burned bright, together, they slipped into the darkness, step by step, closer to the valley. Closer to the cages, closer to the children. The air smelled of fire and oil. The ground was rough with broken metal. Every sound threatened to betray them. A stone rolled, a chain rattled, but the raiders did not hear. They were too lost in their own noise at last. The human reached the edge of the camp. The cages were only steps away. He could see them clearly now. Each egg glowing faintly, each one alive. The mother's tears flowed again. She reached out, but the human stopped her. Not yet. One mistake would ruin everything. The raiders' commander laughed from the fire. He spoke of selling the eggs to the highest bidder. He spoke of wealth and power. The others cheered. The human clenched his fists, his jaw tight. He swore in silence. They would not win. Not tonight. The night was deep, the shadows thick. The human took a breath, his eyes locked on the cages. The mother's hope rested on him now. The future of her children lay in his hands. The moment of decision had come, and with it the beginning of danger. The camp of the raiders roared with fire and laughter. The armored thieves sat around their pits. Drinking from black cups, their voices shook the night. Their weapons lay scattered beside them. They believed they were safe. They believed no one dared stand against them. But in the shadows, a human prepared to prove them wrong. Beside him, the alien mother trembled, her eyes locked on the glowing cages. Every beat of her heart was a cry for her children. Every breath was a prayer they would live. She wanted to rush forward, to scream, to tear the cages apart. But the human's hand held her back. His eyes told her the truth. One wrong move, and all would be lost. The human waited. He studied the camp with patience. He measured the rhythm of the guards. He counted the steps of those who wandered near the cages. He watched how the firelight shifted, where the shadows grew deep, where footsteps did not fall. This was not a battle of numbers. This was a battle of silence. When the moon slid behind the clouds, the night grew darker. The raiders shouted louder, blind to the danger that moved among them. The human took his chance. He slipped into the valley. Step by step, silent as breath, the mother stayed hidden on the ridge. Her hands clutched the earth, her eyes never leaving him. Her soul followed every movement. She had given her children's hope to this stranger, and now her heart lived or died with him. The human reached the first tent. He pressed against the dark wall. Inside he heard snores, thick, heavy, careless. He moved on. Each step was chosen, each breath controlled. He was a shadow in the firelight. The cages stood only a few steps away now. Their blue glow lit his face inside. The eggs shimmered faintly. They pulsed with life. They were beautiful, fragile, and they did not belong in this place. He reached for the cage, but it was locked with a strange red seal. The same shard of metal he had found earlier. A piece of raider tech. He pulled it from his pocket. Pressed it against the lock. The seal sparked, then hissed. The cage opened with a soft click. The human froze. He waited. No sound came. No guard stirred. He exhaled, slow and quiet. Then he lifted the cage. It was heavier than he expected. The weight pressed into his arms, but he did not falter. He held it close. As if holding life itself, the mother, still hidden, gasped. Her tears spilled again for the first time since her children were taken. She felt hope rise like fire. Her eggs were in safe hands. Hands that were not her own, but hands she could trust. The human turned step by step. He moved back into the shadows. But fate is never silent forever. One raider rose from the fire, drunk, swaying. He stumbled toward the cages. His eyes narrowed at the faint glow. The human froze. The mother bit her hand to keep from crying out. The raider muttered to himself. He leaned close. But then he laughed and turned away. Too blind, too drunk to see the truth, the human's heart pounded. He did not move until the raider was gone. Only then did he slip farther into the dark, step by step, closer to the ridge, closer to safety. But the night was not done testing him. A second guard walked past, not drunk, not blind. His eyes sharper, his ears quick. The human pressed against the shadows. Holding his breath, the cage heavy in his arms. The guard paused. He turned his head, his hand touched the weapon at his side. The human closed his eyes. Silence stretched long. Then, the guard spat on the ground and walked away. Luck, only luck, but sometimes luck is enough at last. The human reached the edge of the camp. The ridge was only steps away. The mother leaned forward, her arms outstretched. But before he could reach her, a chain rattled, a voice barked. One of the raiders had seen movement. The human did not wait. He ran, silent no more. The camp erupted with shouts. Weapons were raised, fires roared brighter. The chase had begun. The mother cried out as he reached her side. She touched the cage with shaking hands. Her tears falling on its glowing surface, the human pushed her behind him. The raiders were coming. The night of silence was over. The night of fire was about to begin, but the eggs were no longer in enemy hands, and that was enough to fight for. The night exploded with noise. The raiders' laughter turned to shouts. Their armored boots hammered against the black soil. Weapons flared with red fire, cutting through the shadows. The silent rescue was no longer silent. The human ran with the glowing cage in his arms. Every step heavy, every breath burning. The alien mother followed close, her silver skin bright in the moonlight. Behind them, the camp roared alive. The raiders were coming, dozens of them, angry and armed. Bolts of red light hissed past the human's head. One struck a tree, turning it to ash in a heartbeat. Another blasted the ground. Dirt sprang into the air, but he did not stop. He tightened his grip on the cage. He held it close. He would not let go. The mother stumbled but pushed forward, her eyes fixed on the cage. Her children's glow lit her face. She whispered their names even as she ran. Each name gave her strength, each name gave her courage. The forest around them seemed to help. Branches bent low, roots lifted, as if the land itself wished to shield them. But the raiders were fast, their armor strong, their engines loud. Some leapt onto hovering bikes, black machines that howled like beasts. The chase grew sharper. The human darted between trees. The mother followed his every step. But the red lights kept raining. The ground shook with explosions. Still, the cage was safe in his arms. That was all that mattered. They reached the river, wide and glowing under the moons. Its waters shimmered like silver fire. The human did not slow. He splashed into the current. Holding the cage above his head, the water pulled at his legs. Heavy and strong, but he pushed forward. Behind him, the mother waded in, her hands steady even as waves struck her body. The raiders fired into the river. Water boiled where the bolts struck. Spray hissed into the air. But the human kept moving, one step then another, until they reached the far bank, dripping, gasping, alive. But the chase did not end. The raiders crossed too, their bikes skimming over the water. The human's heart pounded. The forest ahead was their only shield. He ran, branches snapping under his boots. The mother beside him, her breath sharp and fast. A bolt grazed his shoulder. Pain flared, burning hot. He stumbled but did not fall. The cage shook in his arms. He tightened his grip. No, he whispered to himself. Not now, not here. He forced his legs to move faster. The mother saw his wound. Her eyes filled with fear, but also with fire. She picked up a broken branch, sharp at the end. And when one raider came too close, she struck with all her strength. The bike spun, crashed into the trees. The rider tumbled into the dark. For the first time, she had fought back. For the first time, her grief turned into fury. The human glanced at her. Pain in his face, pride in his eyes. Together they ran deeper. The forest roared with life around them. Creatures scattered, shadows twisted. Still, the raiders followed. They would not stop. Not until the eggs were theirs again. The human knew they could not run forever. He needed a plan ahead. The ground split into cliffs. A narrow path ran along the edge, dangerous, but it was their only chance. He turned, guiding the mother toward it. The cliff rose high, the drop deep. The path narrow as a blade, one wrong step meant death. The mother hesitated, fear in her eyes, but the human pressed forward. He carried the cage as if it were light, though his wound bled, though his strength burned behind them. The raiders reached the cliff too. Their shouts echoed like thunder. Their lights burned against the stone. The chase became a hunt along the edge of the world. The human's boots slipped on loose rock. The mother grabbed his arm. Steadying him, they moved together, one step at a time. The raiders closed in, closer, closer. At the sharpest curve, the human turned. He set the cage down behind him. He stood between it and the raiders, his body a shield. He picked up a stone, heavy and jagged. It was no weapon against their machines, but in his hands it became enough. The first raider lunged forward. The human struck with the stone. Armor cracked, the raider fell. The second raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the mother hurled another branch. It struck his helmet, knocking him aside. For a moment the chase slowed. For a moment silence returned. But the raiders were many, and more were coming. The human grabbed the cage. He looked at the mother, his voice low, urgent. "We keep moving," she nodded. Her fear was gone now. Her grief had turned into fire. Together they lifted the cage, together they ran. The chase thundered on into the night, and though the raiders outnumbered them, Though the world itself seemed against them, the human's grip never loosened, the eggs never left his arms, and the mother never left his side. The chase was not the end. It was only the beginning of their fight. The chase lasted through the night. The human and the alien mother ran until their legs shook, until their breath came sharp and broken. But still they did not stop. The raiders hunted them, their voices rising behind the trees. Yet something stronger than fear kept the two alive. At last, as the suns began to rise, the human led the mother into a hidden cave. The entrance was narrow, hidden by vines and stone inside. The air was cool and silent, safe for a moment. He set the glowing cage down with care. His arms trembled, his shoulder burned from the wound. But his eyes stayed sharp, the eggs pulsed softly, alive. The mother knelt before them. Her hands pressed against the light, tears filled her eyes. Her children were safe again, for a long moment. She said nothing, she only wept. Not with the sound of sorrow, but with the sound of joy. She touched the human's hand, her silver fingers warm against his skin. Her eyes spoke what her words could not. "Thank you." The human nodded. But his gaze stayed on the cave's mouth. He knew it was not over. The raiders would not give up so easily. They wanted the eggs. They wanted to break this fragile hope, and soon the sound of engines filled the air. The cave shook. The raiders had found them. The mother's joy turned to fear. She looked at the human, her tears still shining. Would they lose everything now? Would her children be taken once more? The human rose, he stood between her and the cave mouth. His body tall, his voice calm. "No one takes them again," he whispered. Not to her, not to himself, but to the universe itself. The raiders stormed the cave, their armor glowing red, their weapons raised. But the human did not move. He had no great weapons, no shining machines. Only his will, only his courage. The fight was short but fierce, the cave rang with shouts. With the clash of stone and steel, the human struck with everything he had. He used the rocks, the shadows, even his own pain. Every strike was for the eggs. Every strike was for the mother. Every strike was for the promise he had made. The raiders, angry and arrogant, had not expected such fire from a lone human. One by one they faltered, one by one they fell back until at last their commander stood alone, his dark armor cracked, his red staff flickering. He raised his weapon for a final blow. But the mother stepped forward, her body trembling yet fierce. She lifted a stone with both hands, and with the strength of love she struck, the commander fell. His weapon shattered. The cave was silent once more. The raiders fled into the forest, their shouts fading with the wind. They had lost, not to an army, not to weapons of war, but to one human, and to the love of a mother. The human leaned against the wall, his body weak. The mother caught him before he fell. She held him close, her tears fell on his face. Not of sorrow this time, but of gratitude. She turned back to the cage, her children glowed brighter now, as if they knew they were safe, as if they knew their mother's love had won. She lifted the cage into her arms, her heart at last whole again. Outside, the suns rose higher. Light spilled into the forest, the world seemed new. The river sang, the trees swayed. Life breathed again. The human stepped from the cave, the mother beside him, her children safe in her arms. Together they walked back to the nest, the place where her sorrow had begun. Now it would be the place where hope returned. When they reached it, the mother set the eggs back into the nest. She touched each one gently, whispering names, whispering love. The forest seemed to bow in silence, as if it too celebrated the return. She looked at the human, her eyes deep with meaning. She placed her hand over his heart, her voice soft but clear. "You are family now." He did not understand the words, but he felt the truth in them. A warmth spread through him. He had come as an explorer. He would leave as something greater, a protector, a friend. The alien mother smiled for the first time. Her grief had ended, her hope had returned, and all because of one human who refused to let her suffer alone. In the end, the universe did not remember the raiders. Their names were lost, their ships forgotten. But the story of the grieving mother and the human who brought her children home lived on. A story told under alien skies, a story whispered by rivers and trees, a story of hope and of humans who, even in the darkest night, carried light in their hearts.